And hey everybody, Terrible Shoes back at it again. I'm making another Pokemon card video today, but we're not going to be opening anything. We're not going to be talking about like whatnot scammers trying to steal some high value card that they're mad that they pulled for you. But today I actually want to talk about something in the community that I think is incredibly annoying and just doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. And that is the constant glazing of base set and its incredibly generic artworks. And I'm gonna say that with my whole chest. Yes, the base set for Pokemon, the very first one that everyone loves, has some of the worst and most generic artwork in the entire franchise's history when it comes to TCG. And yes, I get it. It was the first. They were still figuring out. Designs were different back then, and that's perfectly okay. But I'm going to actually go into why I feel like I need to say this, because I cannot stop running into weird people on Twitter that seem to unironically believe that a Vulpix pasted on a black background from some generic background image CD that they bought back then in order to use as backgrounds for these cards, saying some ridiculous shit like how it's better than a full art card, like a full art modern card. Like I have outright seen people say some really crazy stuff. There's a lot of really pretty modern day cards out there, and that isn't just that's not simply just SIRs, alternate arts and such. A lot of modern Pokemon cards have a lot of heart put into them, and they look incredible, but they will never get the true recognition they deserve as long as weirdos like this continue to exist. There are people who, like I said, they unironically believe that a illustration pasted on a black background is better simply because of the set that it came from. And it's just really weird to me. You see a lot of posts on Twitter and such where they say, oh, modern or vintage. And then they take the absolute worst looking vintage card you can possibly find of the Pokemon. And then you take the best looking modern card. And there are still tiny brain, smooth brain people that will unironically come in there and say, well, vintage is king. So this really shitty Ninetales picture is much better than this full art that came out just a couple years ago. I mean, it's vintage, it's Wizards of the Coast. That's another big one too. People glaze Wizards of the Coast. And I'm going to be real here. With the way Wizards of the Coast has acted over the last, I want to say 7 or so years, they don't deserve a single bit of the glazing that they have gotten. And I don't care that it's retroactive either. Vintage glazers in this community just, in my opinion, make this whole hobby look really bad. They hate the fact that there are so many gorgeous cards out there. They hate the fact that artwork in the TCG has come leaps and miles beyond what they had when they were kids. And I think that's a big part of it. I think deep down they're very jealous that they didn't get these beautiful, let's be real with what they are, alternative art cards, such as the trainer gallery, actual alt arts, secret illustration rares, and such. They are upset that they weren't able to grow up with such gorgeous cards. That's not to say that there aren't really good looking vintage cards out there, because there are plenty of iconic vintage cards out there. Look at the classic Charizard. I think that is actually a vintage card done right. When we're talking about base set, where it's not just the Pokemon slapped on some generic background because they just couldn't. They actually thematically placed it perfectly, in my opinion, and that's what made a card like that so popular, obviously outside of the obvious insane Charizard hype. I feel like that actually is a good example of a base set card, and some others also being Pikachu, and I'm actually going to go ahead and say this as well. I think Dugong had a fantastic card because they all thematically work. But then there's others where you just simply, for instance, let's look at Dugong's again, and you look at Seal on a generic background. It is not a good looking card. You look at other cards in base set, like I've mentioned before, like Vulpix, which look like shit, but then you contrast it to something like Squirtle, which actually had a lot of love and care put into the card. And I feel like too much of that happens in base set, where for every one card that looks good, there's two that don't. And that's unfortunate, and that's my personal opinion on it. And that's something that I wish more people would actually realistically look at. There's no need to constantly lie to yourself and say that modern Pokemon cards don't have any good artworks, or that some generic artwork from 25 years ago looks way better than the amazing piece you're seeing in front of you. But if you really need to do that to convince yourself that Pokemon has not evolved in this entire time, and that artwork in the TCG hasn't progressed, I suppose you do you. You are completely incorrect, and the weird cult of people that think this way as well are entirely incorrect as well. Pokemon cards have been heading in a great direction. Obviously, there's going to be some standard seasons gameplay-wise where the game is not doing particularly great here and there. And then there's going to be some seasons where it does really well. But something that the card game will always have is its beautiful artwork. And I just wish more people would recognize the beauty of a lot of today's modern cards. And I'm not just talking about the obvious ones like the 151 Charizard and the Umbreons. Because there's tons of great artworks that go completely overlooked that come out in today's sets. And I think it's really sad, and I really would encourage people to do maybe a little bit of research themselves and look at some modern cards, and I guarantee you'll find at least one that has artwork so beautiful that you'd probably buy to print and hang it out on your wall. That's all I got to say today. I think cards have progressed greatly since the beginning. Pokemon cards have always been a huge hobby of mine since the day Blue came out over here, and since the day that the cards came out over here when I was a very young child. And to see just so many people that have really weird opinions like this, it blows my mind almost. It makes no sense to me. Let me know what you think, though. Leave a comment down below on what your opinion on this situation is. And hit the like and subscribe button. That helps me out a ton. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.